people are.
So over a period of time, I would argue normalcy is returning. A multipolar world is the norm. It is actually the true statement of the diversity of 190 something countries in the world. A unipolar, bipolar, limited polar is actually a distortion. While noting the concern, I wouldn't prejudge the outcome. I would wait and see really what happens in terms of our ability to reach an understanding with the United States. But I think something very fundamental is shifting in the world order. If the United States starts to change its terms of dealing with the world, its approach to dealing with the world, it's almost, it's not almost, it is actually the foundation of the order which is shifting. I think the world will never be the same again.
Exactly.
I would still argue that the shift in the American position is a much more fundamental happening than the conflict, than the Russia-Ukraine.
Okay, just keeping everybody busy and distracted with the things in the world like Hegseth or even the Ukraine-Russian war. Little pieces that are meaningful, but just little pieces to the puzzle. But what is actually happening in the background is, if you just knew what was going on as far as the multipolar world taking place right now. Hegemony is going. The globalism is being just ripped apart. India and Trump are ripping apart the establishment. While the West, these news media outlets, they're staying out of the big picture. You've got to see this to get the picture of what's going on behind the scenes that the media isn't really discussing right now. But Jaishankar is, and Modi is. The old has passed away. Behold, all things have become new. Are you not perceiving it? A lot of people are not perceiving it because they're not seeing what's going on behind the scenes or hearing it. And here you will, ladies and gentlemen, check this out. You've got to watch this from the front to the back. Please grab yourselves a drink because you're going to want to watch this throughout. Just trust me here.
Surely it cannot be that one country or two countries or three countries have the ability to control the 190 odd countries. When we didn't use the word multipolar, the earlier conversations, we are actually looking at a very distorted phase in the world's history, which was coming out of colonialism, then sliding into the Cold War, where a few countries of the colonial period and the Cold War period asserted their hegemony by actually making that hegemonic circumstance look like a normal. So, in fact, we should have been asking ourselves, we are 200 of us. Why are two or three countries, how do they have the right and how do they have the ability to control the others? So at some stage, the democratization of the world started happening.
What we have just heard Jaishankar say in the last couple of minutes, I am going to go through this with you right here as Jaishankar in this about 15-20 minute speech that he has just given concerning the multipolar world, which is in effect right now, which they are trying to bring it back to normalcy, to where the whole world would once again, everybody would have their fair shake, have their fair share. What we're seeing in the Donald Trump administration is not overthrowing a government, but overthrowing a globalism, a hegemony, which has been in the making and getting a stranglehold on the people of the world, and the world is not liking it. And here Jaishankar is explaining that with Donald Trump in office, this is a world changer, a world-changing event. And here it is, Jaishankar is explaining it to us in a nutshell. So please, grab yourselves a drink, and feel free to like and subscribe and hit that notification button if you feel led. We are so grateful, so thankful from the bottom of our hearts to have you joining us here today as we all get educated and entertained here on the Speak and See Show. Let's check it out.
Then, of course, most recently, we have President Trump returning to office and taking a very unconventional approach to the pending issues of peace and conflict of the day. So, his agenda clearly is to realize MAGA, to make America great again, and project that in the global stage. So there's the idea that there is a paradigm shift taking place in the world, in the global order. But as a country that has held to this position of non-alignment, as a core positioning of your foreign policy. Does it feel like a paradigm shift moment to you, or is that appropriate for you?
Your question, is it a paradigm shift? Look, I think there's an objective reality out there. What yours or mine or somebody else's relationship is to the reality doesn't change the reality. It just makes us see that reality in a different way. So yes, South Korea is a treaty ally, but whether you are a treaty ally or a non-treaty or a non-ally or utterly agnostic, uninvolved power, you still have to recognize the fundamentals of what is shifting. And now you can call it a churn, you can call it a paradigm shift, you can use even stronger words, but I think something very fundamental is shifting in the world order. And what is shifting is that the United States, which has been for the last 80 years the most powerful country and the biggest economy, and something much more than that. A country which in many ways underwrote global rules and practices, which fashioned many of the organizations and understandings. If the United States starts to change its terms of dealing with the world, its approach to dealing with the world, it's almost, it's not almost, it is actually the foundation of the order which is shifting. Now, I use the term churn myself, so I compliment your team for picking.
We took it from you.
For this, because the word churn kind of signifies that you're going deep down.
Yes.
That it's not something on a surface. Exactly. It's not something which is going to come, go, and we'll carry on. I think the world will never be the same again.
Exactly.
So there is something very deep, very profound, very consequential which is happening right now. And yes, again, I think there are many other events and trends which have fed into it. You referred to the conflict, the Russia-Ukraine conflict. I would still argue that the shift in the American position is a much more fundamental happening than the conflict, than the Russia-Ukraine conflict, however serious that is. There is another trend which precedes that, which is I would say the rise of China, because in many ways I think that has driven or fed into the shift in American attitudes.
Yes.
There is a renewed, sharper sense of geopolitics. I think the changed American view of globalization has a lot to do with the rise of China. Not just the rise of China. I think you can see that in a way between US and the world and between the West and the non-West, there has also been a shift in terms of balances and relative weight. So in some ways, we in India have also contributed to the dynamism of this evolution. And so have a lot of other countries. I mean, if you look at the 20 biggest economies, clearly these are very different from what they were 20 years ago, even more so than what they were 30, 40 years ago. So you had, the way I would describe it is there's a series of trend lines. Then there are certain sharp events. COVID is an event. Russia-Ukraine conflict is an event. What's happening in the Middle East is an event. I would put, this rebalancing, the fact that you have the relative weight of economies are shifting, and with it the relative weight of the political influences. Technology is also both a trend and, in a way, and it's not an event, but it's a, there is a sharpness about some of it, particularly the AI bit. So you have trends, you have events, but most important, you have the foundation of the global order actually at some point saying, guess what, I've had enough of the order which I myself helped to invent, and now I think I'm going to set about it in a very different way. In many ways, a lot of what is driving the shift will also impact some parts of Asia. I mean, we are looking today at more industrial policy, at tariff wars, if you would, tariff impositions at least. You are looking at much stronger export controls.
Yes.
So it's not just the foundation which is shifting. That shifting foundation has a worldview which is significantly different from the earlier foundation on which some parts of Asia particularly profited enormously and may now no longer do so.
And in this mix, I think India is looked upon as having had a very agile, pragmatic approach to this churn.
Thank you very much.
Minister, you were there at the inauguration of President Trump to lay the foundation for what turned out to be a very successful visit by the Prime Minister to Washington, and came out with a statement. Just looking at the outcome, it's so substantive. It just touches so many aspects of this growing bilateral relationship between the United States and India, including now cooperation in the defense sector, and agreement to work towards a trade, not a free trade agreement, but a trade agreement nonetheless. I understand that the U.S. delegation is here to kickstart that negotiation. So I remember that moment many years ago when the RCEP was being finalized, and the summit meetings that gathered to finalize this and signed on to it. And Prime Minister Modi was the one who could not sign on to it.
Correct.
And that was a disappointment for the group. But I think from the Prime Minister's point of view, you understood the difficulties of signing on to that at that particular moment. But since then, there has been many bilateral trade agreements worked out, and now you're working towards one with the United States. How do you see this unfolding, and does this mean a fundamental shift in India's trade policy toward openness rather than the traditional, protect my industry kind of a position?
Let me, for the sake of clarity, separate the questions into two parts. One was going to Washington and what did we agree on, and the other part, the trade set of issues. When we went to Washington in February, when Prime Minister went, and the discussions that he had with President Trump, I think overall our assessment was that we saw many changes which were, which suited us, or which in some ways formed a convergence on which we could build upon. Let me give you a few examples. Let's take defense. We saw a president who was much more open and much more active in terms of building a security defense partnership, and much more forthcoming about American technology possibilities. Our own experience in the first term, in his first term, was that he personally took an interest in ensuring that some of the platforms which we had an interest in, which we wanted, which were sort of meandering their way somewhere through American bureaucracy, that he stepped in and made sure that this happened. This time around, we certainly heard a recognition that there has to be a better way of engaging partners. If there are countries who respect and recognize the value of American technology and want to acquire it, and there should be easier pathways than the current one. So the success of big tech is essential to make America great again. There is a connection between the two. I think big tech recognizes the importance of mobility and talent flows, and the importance of partnerships, because obviously everything in the tech world can't happen in America. So how do you create reliable supply chains? How do you have trusted vendors, trusted partners, transparent partners? I think these were issues on which again we saw a great deal of understanding and positivity. On trade, we had a very open discussion. And the result of that discussion was that the Prime Minister and the President agreed that we would conclude you rightly said, not a free trade agreement, but a bilateral trade agreement by fall this year. And that is what is currently under discussion. So there's a very active and intense trade discussion going on at this point of time.
Your point about multipolar world, when you came to Asia Society in the fall last year, you said multipolar Asia is necessary for both the Asian century and for a multipolar world.
Yes.
Right? The world has changed rather dramatically since then. Has that idea of a multipolar world, multipolar Asia, crystallized, become more concrete, changed? How many poles are you talking about?
You know, let's go to the multipolar world first and then Asia later. What is the underpinning, what's the basis for this concept? It is that the world is fundamentally diverse. There will be, multiple centers of production, of consumption, of political influence, of capabilities. So inherently, the world should be multipolar. Because if you have 200 odd countries, like 200 minus countries in the world, surely it cannot be that one country or two countries or three countries have the right or frankly even the ability to control the 190 odd countries. So to me, you can say when we didn't use the word multipolar, the earlier conversations, we are actually looking at a very a distorted phase in the world's history, which was coming out of colonialism, then sliding into the Cold War, where a few countries of the colonial period and the Cold War period asserted their hegemony by actually making that hegemonic circumstance look like a normal. So, in fact, we should have been asking ourselves, we are 200 of us. Why are 2 or 3 countries, how do they have the right and how do they have the ability to control the others? So, at some stage, the democratization of the world started happening. It started happening because as colonialism ended, other countries picked up their economies. Economies grew, politics capabilities grew along with it. So over a period of time, I would argue normalcy is returning. A multipolar world is the norm. It is actually the true statement of the diversity of 190 something countries in the world. A unipolar, bipolar, limited polar is actually a distortion.
So multipolar in the sense of not 3, not 4, but many.
Yes, many, because, and again, it's important because often the reality and frankly the viability, the utility, the merits, the virtue of having an Asia which is multipolar as well is sometimes not that sharply realized outside Asia. So it is, if you can't say the rest of the world should reflect its diversity, and by the way, Asia should somehow be exempt from it. Asia is actually the most diverse continent.
Yes.
If any part of the world should be multipolar, it should start with Asia.
Yes, sir. How do we protect ourselves in the light of the coming trade negotiation?
Okay.
Look, I think people do know, are cognizant of many of the issues which you have raised. Now, how do we do it? You know better than me, there are trade negotiators at work. You have been one yourself. That these are people who know our interests. I have every confidence that, they will negotiate what is the best possible deal for us. So I would, while noting the concern, I wouldn't prejudge the outcome. I would wait and see really what happens in terms of our ability to reach an understanding with the United States. But I don't believe that a problem should in itself be an insuperable obstacle, because there is a sound business case for a BTA with the US. I mean, bear in mind, in the first Trump administration, actually our trade negotiators and theirs spent a lot of time actually trying to do a limited deal. Part of the reason, I suspect, when I look back on it, was they were very confident that they'll come back into the second term, so they didn't push it with that kind of urgency which they could have, and then COVID came in between, etc. So a trade agreement with the US is actually conceptually not new. I mean, what is new is possibly the scale and maybe the urgency with which we are doing it now. But the idea that you have such an agreement was something which was very much alive in the Trump first administration.
So there he is, ladies and gentlemen, Jaishankar. He is the front runner of moving India, moving the United States, Russia, China, the whole world into a multipolar world and giving everybody their fair shake. You don't get very encouraged watching politicians usually, but Jaishankar, on the other hand, has just delivered a pretty intense message here. So ladies and gentlemen, please like and subscribe. If you feel led, click that notification button so when we get information out, you can get information in. We are so thankful and grateful for you all being here with us, and we hope to see you on the next one. Have a blessed day. God is good. Bye-bye.